A healthy relationship with money is going to lead to a divorce that's a little healthier, and a dysfunctional relationship with money is going to lead to one that's a lot of chaos.
Can there ever be a good, legal, valid reason why one would not want a prenup?
The majority of marriages end in divorce.
How much of this overworking, overly career-driven, ambitious burnout is a factor in the equation of divorce?
The worst time to learn how to fight is when you're in a fight.
What are couple dynamics or archetypes? Those are most bound to end in divorce. And what are the dynamics or archetypes where there is more chances of likelihood of a continued marriage?
How you will get the government involved in that relationship is the least interesting part of this conversation.
Today, we are going to talk about love, marriage, heartbreaks, relationship, and divorces. Today's episode was recorded in the heart of New York City. I had the pleasure of sitting down with James Sexton, a leading New York divorce attorney and the best-selling author of If You're in My Office, It's Already Too Late, a divorce lawyer's guide to staying together, and How to Stay in Love, practical wisdom from an unexpected source. James is the go-to divorce attorney for high-performing couples when everything matters, from crafting prenup agreements to navigating super complex, high-conflict, high-stakes celebrity and high-net-worth divorces. You may have heard James already on top shows like The Diary of a CEO, The Huberman Lab, or Lex Fridman podcast. Today, James brings all of his decades of frontline experience shaped by thousands of relationships that have ended, but also some that have been saved, to this show. What sets James apart is more than legal acuity and his exceptional legal skills. It's his really rare ability to combine tactical clarity, deep psychological insights, and genuine compassion to his clients. James can spot the subtle patterns most of us miss completely. The behaviors that quietly dismantle a marriage and the practical habits that can help us preserve one. In this episode, you will discover the tools he wished couples used before they ever stepped into his office, how to recognize early signs of disconnection in your marriage, and how to strengthen your marriage, or if needed, and if it's come to that, how to approach divorce with clarity instead of chaos. Put simply, if you're committed to a marriage that truly matters, or if you're facing the end of it, James is the lawyer, the man, and the strategist you really want in your corner. Whether you're married, divorced, dating, remarried, divorced again, or simply striving for better relationships, this conversation will deliver the insights and life tools you can start applying today to improve your relationships. I have to confess, this is the conversation I wish I had heard before my divorce, and I hope that you will find it as enlightening, engaging, and fun to listen to as I found it to record it in person in the heart of New York City. So now sit back, engage fully, and this episode is one that is definitely worth both listening to and watching as well. This episode is brought to you by our very first show sponsor, CaptureBee.io. One of the hardest parts of building a business and expanding your personal brand is keeping a steady flow of warm leads and connections. When I first started, chasing leads on LinkedIn was draining, distracting, and let's be honest, not really why I went into business in the first place. Now, just imagine never having to hunt for clients again. No cold outreach, no endless LinkedIn scrolling at 1 a.m., no awkward reels either. That's exactly what CaptureBee does for you. It's a done-for-you outreach service that books warm leads straight into your calendar. And more than that, it can help you get featured on leading podcasts so that you can elevate your personal brand at the same time.
Now, I wonder what's going to happen, James, because I've heard you with scientists, neuroscientists, entrepreneurs. Here's my question. Have you been on a podcast with another former attorney?
That's a great question. I don't think I have. I don't think I have.
I wonder what's going to
we
happen.
always avoid, I think I admire and avoid those who've gotten over the fence, because it's like a person who's in jail and there's someone now on the other side of the fence going, it's lovely out here. And I'm looking at them going, like they're probably right. So it might be that I avoid former lawyers for that reason. Or it may be that often people won't admit that they're former lawyers. They don't want to acknowledge that it's true. They tell people that they were like, something less shameful, like a prostitute, or, a murderer, But yeah, no, it's this could be uncharted terrain for me. So.
I like to think of the term recovered attorney.
Recovered. I would say recovering.
Recovering.
Because alcoholics always say you're never recovered, you're always recovering. Because I always tell people I'm a recovering Catholic. Because I went to Catholic school my whole life, and I said I never think I'll be completely over it, but I'm recovering, and I'll stay in recovery. So you're a recovering attorney. But we spoke very briefly earlier today, which I was trying to resist because I knew the minute we started talking, things would be coming out of our mouths that would be interesting to talk about. But one of the things I said is that how does it not inform? Like, I'm sure that your training as an attorney informs the way you look at the world and the way that you process problem solving and identify issues. And whatever profession a person might choose from then on, I think you can't change that way of looking at things.
And in the same way, I believe that you, having studied psychology, has had a great influence on your decision to become a divorce attorney.
Yeah, I think it was fundamental to it. I mean, I wanted to become a mental health professional, a psychiatrist or a psychologist, because I found, sort of human interaction so fascinating, and the way we struggle with ourself and getting to know ourself and becoming an authentic version of ourself. And I always sort of felt if there was a purpose to life, it was to figure out who you are, and to ideally find connection to another person and help them figure out who they authentically are. And I genuinely don't think I can learn everything I need to know about myself from myself. I think that I need someone else. I need someone who can see my blind spots. I need someone who can help me see myself clearly. And so I wanted to be part of that ecosystem. I wanted to be part of, people figuring themselves out. And in the process of doing that, even helping me figure out who I am, and then I realized that good therapists probably listen more than they talk. And that wasn't my strong suit. So I thought, well, what's the next thing? And I ended up going to graduate school. I thought I'd be a professor. I thought I would teach. But then, the extemporaneous speaking debate, because even professors, like, you get up, you talk about things, but you're kind of repeating the same things because you're teaching the wisdom of others and your own analysis of that wisdom, perhaps, but your own synergy of it with your own independent thought. But then you're just reiterating the same things to some degree over and over. And I thought I would lose interest in that pretty quickly. So then the law became very appealing. And I'm blessed to say, I joke about lawyers getting over the fence, but I've been a divorce lawyer for 25 years and I still get very excited to get to work. I love it. I still really love it.
I know we're not necessarily known for our numbers ability, but I would love to get some numbers with you.
Sure.
How many divorces are we talking about? 25 years as a divorce attorney?
Yeah. I really should run that calculation. I have the records that I could run it because I'm asked it sometimes. It has to be in the thousands now because I always have at least, and now my career is more selective. Like when it started, I really represented anyone. Whoever would hire me. I was not one of those attorneys who was born into a family of lawyers and, like my colleague Laura Wasser in LA, who represents, a lot of celebrities and things like that. Her father was an incredibly successful divorce lawyer who represented celebrities, and she became a lawyer. By virtue of her connection to her father, she started having these clients, and then became, is a phenomenal attorney by any metric. One might argue even better than her father. No insult to her father. She's just a phenomenal attorney. So she certainly wasn't handed anything that she did not deserve. But she had access to something. Like, she didn't start out representing cops and teachers. She started out representing and working on these kinds of cases. And there are other examples of that in New York, in other jurisdictions. A lot of my colleagues, started out. I started out with nothing. I started out representing assigned people in the family court system where you're paid $25 an hour by the state. So that was how I started. And I built that into, the practice that I've built it into. So those early years, I probably had 40 or 50 clients at a time because you had to make it up in volume somehow. Now I only have at any given time maybe 10 or 15 clients. I'm very selective about what cases I work on. The number of people that would like to work with me versus the number of people I am willing to work with it's much smaller. So I probably have 20 or 30 inquiries per week of people who'd like to work with me. I maybe do 3 or 4 consultations per week. I maybe take 2 new cases a month.
Right.
So
okay.
It's a very, most people that are interested in working with me, I refer out to someone else and I don't work with. I only work on cases now that I think I would be particularly good for, where I would be useful for the case. It's less about what is economically, because if my client is worth $10 billion or my client's worth $100 million or my client's worth $500,000, I'm $850 an hour. So every case I'm working on, I'm getting paid exactly the same amount of money, which is $850 an hour for the number of hours that are in a day that I could work. So I don't really worry anymore about, is it a case where I will be useful? And if the answer is yes, then I take the case. So I would say at this point, the number of cases I'm handling at any given time is the lowest it's ever been. But there were times in my career where I had 8 or 9 associates and, a whole army of lawyers, and we would handle, a much larger number of cases. And I didn't enjoy that model as much because I'm very hands-on at my best. I'm kind of a control freak in that way. I'm sure you've never met a lawyer who's a control freak before. I know, it's very strange. What does that mean? It's a very odd thing. I'll explain it to you at some point.
Please do.
I'll mansplain it to you at some point. But I would say in the thousands now, probably.
And I wonder, James, if we have somebody listening to us who's thinking, oh, I'm about to get married, don't have a prenup, I've been divorced before, cost me a lot. Can they call you or have a consultation with you proactively to anticipate, or do you tend to work once that's it?
It's a great question. I ideally like to speak to people when they're in the contemplative stage of something. So I would prefer to speak to someone who's thinking about getting married. I'd prefer to speak to someone who is married and starting to see some issues in the marriage and thinking about the possibility of divorce. I think the worst time to learn how to fight is when you're in a fight. And the worst time to learn what your rights and obligations potentially are is when they're about to come into direct conflict, So I personally believe if you wanted to improve marriage outcomes and the way our divorce system works, creating barriers to entry in marriage rather than barriers to exit. There are a lot of people that say we should make it harder to divorce because then people would work harder at saving their marriage. I disagree. I actually think that we should make getting married, you have to have some basic understanding of legally what's happening in this relationship before you're allowed to marry, because it's like you're signing a contract that you have no idea what the terms are. And so when you say to me, for example, someone's, had an ugly divorce, they're about to get married, they don't have a prenup or they're not planning on having a prenup, I always stop people right there and say, well, no, they have a prenup. They have a prenup. It's written by the government. Mm-hmm. And it can be changed by the government without their permission. And it can be changed by the government without their permission. And then once it's changed, they can't say, oh, well, no, I don't accept those terms. It's too late They already can change those terms without your permission, and you're still in that contract. So to me, the most sensible conversation someone can have is not, should we have a prenup? It's, who should write our prenup? The government, present and future, or the two of us, two people who've decided that we like each other more than the 8 billion other options in the world. Like, I personally believe that if we have a relationship, we should write the rules for that relationship. And even just having the conversation about what those rules should be will tell us a lot about each other. Useful information in an intimate relationship. So,
can there ever be a good legal valid reason why one would not want a prenup?
Well, I mean, yes. I think if you were marrying someone who had a significantly higher net worth than you, and you wanted to preserve, and you feel that what they would be willing to give you at the beginning of a relationship in contemplation of the demise of the relationship is lower than what the law would provide for you in the event your marriage ends, then I think you would have a disincentive to have a prenup. So if you were, I don't like to use the term gold digger, but like if you were someone who was saying, okay, the primary incentive in this marriage for me is economic security, and my rights in the event of divorce would be better than what this person would agree to give me in a prenup, then I think there's a tremendous disincentive. If you are the asset, if the what we call the moneyed spouse, no, I can't think of any circumstance where it would be disadvantageous to have a prenuptial agreement, unless the terms that your soon-to-be spouse would insist upon to feel secure are greater than what their entitlements would likely be in court, and you're willing to agree to those things. Like, because I did a prenup for a guy who's a Goldman Sachs guy in his 30s, young man, very successful though, in his 30s, already worth 20 or 30 $million, really on his way up in the world and in the company. And he was marrying a, very beautiful woman who, I think she was like a yoga teacher or something. She made no money, but she was lovely and loving, and they had just a lovely, and he was actually a quite handsome young man, and very successful. So he had a lot of prospects, and they seemed to have a really lovely relationship. There was a polarity between them. She was very spiritual and grounded, and very very beautiful, and he was very driven and intense. And I think she softened him a bit, which was nice. And we were in this negotiation of this prenuptial agreement, which is a very different negotiation than when I'm doing divorce negotiations, because one of them is like a postmortem on a dead body, and the other one is, these are two people that are about to get in the same car and drive home, and together, and you find yourself going, you don't really want to make it adversarial, but there are some adverse interests at play. And he, to my surprise, just said, well, yeah, okay, because we were getting kind of caught up in, well, if we're married this many years, then this is how much percentage she would get of alimony. And he finally just said, yeah, just give her $1 million. If we split up, she gets $1 million. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, if you split up in 6 months, she gets $1 million. He was like, yeah. I said, do you, she wouldn't have accrued $1 million in rights if you split up in 6 months. And he's like, yeah, but if we split up, I have bigger problems than that. She can just, it's fine. She can have it. And I thought, okay, that makes sense to me. I think when you represent enough high net worth individuals in the divorce context, you come to realize that some of them, the money is symbolic of something. It's not, because there's really only two amounts of money, enough and not enough. That's right. The only two amounts of money. And I have clients that are worth billions of dollars, and it's not enough. Mm. And I have clients who are worth a few $1 million, and it's enough. They're happy, they're content, they have what they need. So I think a healthy relationship with money is going to lead to a divorce that's a little healthier. And a dysfunctional relationship with money is going to lead to one that's a lot of chaos. So I think a prenuptial agreement conversation and contemplation, it's very tied in with what money means to you.
I love that you said enough and not enough, because one of the greatest similarity that I found about being a former litigator at an American law firm and my line of work now as a burnout advisor and clinical hypnotherapist is there are only two things my clients wanted back then and only two things my clients want now. Make it happen, make it go away.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I know what that thing is in the first 5 minutes of any consultation and I can deliver that, that's it.
But I love that. I love you've heard me speak enough to know that like I love the simplicity of metaphors, and I know we're a society that's prone to axioms, but I find that that's a very I had a therapist once who said that most interactions you have with people, they're either on the get or in the have. Yeah. And that most of what we're trying to do is find a way to be in the have and not on the get. Because when you're in the have, you're mindful of what you have some gratitude, you have some awareness, and when you're on the get, there's something outside of yourself that you feel you need in order to feel in the have. And I think it's exactly what you're saying, which is like, make it stop or make it start, give me the thing or stop the thing, and I really get that. Yeah.
So what do your clients want more of? What do they really seek your counsel for? And what do they need your help to put a stop to?
So I imagine in my work, much like yours, there's what people say they want and then what's underneath it. Yes. And I think a lot of my job, like yours, is to get underneath it. So I'll give you a very common example. A lot of men in particular will come into my office who are in a custody case. And they're very frightened because they don't know, what is my time with my children going to be? And something I hear them say constantly is, I want 50-50. I want 50-50. I want 50% of the time. I want my children 50% of the time. I know that's not what they actually want. No sane person analyzes their interactions with their children in numeric percentages. I was a father. I am a father. They're adults now. But I never thought I've only been with Billy 48% this week. I need another 2%. But get your baseball glove. We need to do 2%. That's an insane way of analyzing your time with your children. So what is that man saying? He's saying, I don't want to be a second-class parent. I don't want to just be a guy who plays with the kids on every other weekend and has dinner with them. I want to do the heavy lifting of parenting as well as the fun stuff. I want to play with them on the weekends, and I also want to make them eat their broccoli and get to school on time, and I want to help them with their homework. Maybe they had divorced parents, and they had the kind of father who just showed up every other weekend and took them for a play date and then dropped them off. And they're saying, I don't want to be that. I want to be a real father. I want to be really involved. So a lot of my job is to hear, when another great example is people will say, I want to keep the house. I want to keep the house because I want to keep the kids in the house. Mm-hmm. And I say, well, why do you want to keep the house? Is it that you love this particular home? Is it that you love because some people are very deeply attached to their home.
If you're enjoying this show so far, I just have a very quick favor to ask you. Could you go ahead and click the follow button or the subscribe button? It would mean so much to me, and it would really help to grow our show so that we can enhance the production, we can bring you the best possible guests, and we can have the most amazing conversations. So if you haven't already done this, please take a moment today to go ahead and click the follow button or the subscribe button. Thank you so much. And now let's go back to this amazing conversation.
And usually what I can get to is that, no, I want the kids to feel like things are still the same. And I find myself having to say to them, do you think it's going to feel the same? The chair where mom used to sit at night is going to be gone now, and mom's not going to be sitting in it. Don't you think this house is going to be haunted a little bit? Don't you think, this is the house where your marriage died? Like, do you think that it's going to help your children to stay in that house? Or do you think this is the beginning of a new chapter, and maybe in the beginning of a new chapter, having a new space where you build that new home might be useful? And sometimes when you reframe it for people that way, that helps them get to what is it they're really looking for. And so I think both of our jobs, the thing that people say they want and what they really want is very different. So people say to me, I want money. I want alimony. I want child support. I want to stay in the marital home. I want full custody or sole custody. But what they're really saying is all the same things anyone says to any mental health professional. Like, they're saying, I want security. I don't want to feel so scared. I want to feel safe. I want to feel like my children have stability. And these are very normal human things to feel, So I can solve some of the engineering problems, right? That's what lawyers are good at. I'm very good at taking a problem and breaking it into these smaller pieces and figuring out how to undo the Gordian knot, And I'm very good strategically in terms of my work in court and my work in negotiation. But I think the most important piece of what I do is understanding, what does my client really want? What does the other side really want? Because that becomes something that I can leverage, and that becomes ways to create levers. And what I find strategically is that the most dangerous thing sometimes in divorce is letting anyone know what you actually want, because the other side will weaponize it. Like, I know I weaponize the other side's desire all the time. So I try to get to the bottom of what they want so that I can make them afraid that they're going to lose it. And I can, I try to use sort of fear and greed as the levers on the other side. So helping your client identify what they want, but also keep their mouth shut about what it is that they want, so that we can employ some strategy, is a big piece.
I'm curious, how many clients have you done a divorce for that you do another divorce for a few years later?
I've had a few of those, but typically when people have gone through the kind of divorce where you require someone like me, they're going to have a prenup next time, and it's going to be much simpler. But I've done a few where I represented them in their divorce, and it was an economic divorce, and then they remarried with a prenup, but then they had children with this person. So a prenup can't really bind your rights or obligations related to custody or visitation. So then we ended up in a custody battle. And so I've had cases where we went through a financial litigation in one, and now a custody litigation in the second one. And it happens. It doesn't happen as often. I will say that I know that the statistics for second marriages, the divorce rate is actually higher than first marriages. But my observation of my client base is that people who remarry and have a prenup, I think, are less prone to divorce. I actually think people who have prenups are less prone to divorce, but there would be no way to prove that, because prenups aren't recorded anywhere. They're a contract. They're just in the, I have celebrity clients who I've seen interviewed on TV saying, oh yes, we didn't have a prenup. And I'm like, yes, you did. Like, you did. It's in my safe. I have it. Like, but, it's attorney-client privilege and no one can disclose it. But yes, you do have a prenup. People like to pretend they don't have prenups, and then they have prenups. This is very big with actors. I don't know why it is. Actors all love to say, oh, we didn't have a prenup. We didn't need that. We believe in the relationship. And meanwhile, they have prenups.
I think it's mad to actually find it difficult to accept that you would want to have a prenup. And I speak as someone who's been in this position. Yeah. I've had one of the most horrible divorce a person can have.
Yeah, you
multiple
told me a little about
jurisdiction.
it. Yeah, it sounds like it.
multiple languages.
Sounds right up my alley. Yeah.
Exactly. I just didn't know about you back then.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
it's okay. I try to
would
stay
have
low on
called
the
you.
radar. Yeah.
It took becoming a podcaster to
Yeah.
get to know you.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
I can tell you something. I wish I knew you back then.
Yeah.
I definitely
Those
would
cases
have.
are international multi-jurisdiction cases. I've done a few of them, and I've been co-counsel on a number of them because often you need to work with lawyers from all the different jurisdictions. And that's a particular brand of chaos. I mean, it really is.
It is. And there is an element, though, that I would love to add, which is now being in the seat of the person who hears the internal thoughts of the attorneys or financiers that I work with, who are often the muddy party,
Yeah.
right? The breadwinner, the provider.
Sure.
I find it time and time again, they come to me saying, well, I've had this horrible divorce. It cost me X amount. I'm about to remarry. And she's pretty upset at the thought of a prenup.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't know. It's not that they're not smart enough. It's not that they're not educated enough. They know. But they still feel under enormous amount of emotional pressure not to do it, not to upset this new partner.
Yeah, and these can be, I'm sure, because I have clients like this. These are C-suite executives.
Of course.
Like these are partners in major law firms. So these are not risk-adverse people. These are not people that are shy.
They're not.
These are people that can, we have to lay off 10,000 people next week because that's going to help our bottom line.
Right.
So they can be ice cold when they have to be tactically, but there's something about the nature of that intimate relationship that having a difficult conversation like that and disappointing your romantic partner, it doesn't matter how good you are at these other aspects of life, you can have a very hard time with that. I mean, I've represented some people that are masters of their craft. They are world-class athletes. They are world-class actors. They are executives, founders, and they are absolutely childlike. And I don't say that pejoratively. Like they're childlike in the sense that like they're all emotion and no logic when it comes to this connection with this romantic partner. And they just, logic goes completely out the window because it's just about this depth of connection with this person and this sense that like this is different. Like I can feel that it's different. Like I feel this love. I feel this connection. I feel this. And, it's very hard to tell someone who has like a PhD and is the most, a brilliant person, you're wrong. Or if you're right, it's an unfalsifiable premise that you're saying. And why wouldn't you want to have this? Like, I don't plan on getting in a car accident, but I like having airbags in my car. I like having seatbelts in my car.
Right.
Like, every marriage ends. It ends in death or divorce. I hope yours ends in death. That sounds weird to say, but I hope your marriage ends in death because it means it was successful, that you stayed together all the way through. But on the odd chance that it ends the way that the majority of marriages end, the majority of marriages end in divorce. So why wouldn't you hedge that bet a little with a prenuptial agreement? I understand why, because it's a difficult conversation to have with someone who you feel so deeply connected to.
We have at least 2 Ds in common. I always say in my line of work, professionals come knocking on my door because of one of the 3 Ds. Divorce or the imminent threat of. Health diagnosis. So I wonder if you have that one too. Would love to talk about it because mine is probably one of the primary reasons. So healthcare diagnosis, stroke, heart attack, that you survive, but you have a real sense of
Wake up call. Your mortality.
That wake up call, and death. And death is often that of a family member, of a colleague, your boss dying in the office, where you realize, that's my path. My wake-up call was my father's heart attack, right? So when you realize, oh, wow, I'm following his footsteps, that's where I'm heading. I wonder, because you work in the world of high performers, high net worth, how much of this overworking, overly career-driven, ambitious burnout is a factor in the equation of divorce?
You know, the best definition of addiction that I've ever heard was that addiction is any behavior that you engage in to stop yourself from feeling what you would have felt if you'd done nothing at all. And someone once said to me that the most useful question you can ask when entering into therapy is, what is it that I'm afraid to feel? I can say without hesitation, work is my favorite narcotic. Like, anytime I am in pain emotionally, work is the most comforting thing to me because I understand the rules of it. I'm excellent at it. I know exactly what's expected of me and exactly how to do it. So anytime things feel terrifying in my life or things feel out of control, because all those things you just listed, divorce, disease or diagnosis, death, they're all things that they remind me I have no control. Like that I can't fix this. My brains, my wit, I can't fix this. Like my oldest son has epilepsy, and thank God it's been well controlled. But in his junior year of college, he just out of the blue had 5 grand mal seizures and was, it was terrifying. And I remember thinking like, okay, my money can get him good care. It can get him, with good doctors, but it can't fix this. Like nothing can fix this. My intellect can't fix this. My problem solving can't fix this. My presence or absence can't fix this. Like I don't have control over this. And so I think having spent a lot of time with high performing people, because that happens to be what my client base now ends up being, unless they were lucky enough to have generational wealth, which I do have a lot of like trust fund people, that like their greatest skill was that their grandparents died. Like that's why they're worth so much money, is that someone very successful died and then left it to them. They picked their grandparents carefully. But most of my clients are high performers. And yeah, I think that a lot of them, they have lost that balance. They don't have a balance. Like maybe they never had a balance. And so it's not even fair to say they lost the balance, because many of them never had a balance. Many of them it was all gas, no brakes. And then they don't know how to stop that. Like they don't know how to do, or they have the kind of job, like the job I have, that you kind of can't do. You have to do it or not do it. You can't sort of do it. Like you're in or you're out. Those are your choices. There's no way to be a part-time divorce litigator. Like, no, you're either a divorce litigator, which is a harsh mistress, or you're not. And I happen to be the kind of person that, like, I can very easily imagine a life where I stop doing what I'm doing and I'm just writing and speaking and, living my life. I find hobbies. I have a lot of hobbies I find very rewarding, but I'm still very much enjoying what I do. So I keep doing it, and I'm going to keep doing it until I don't enjoy it anymore, or until I find it stressful in a way that I think is harmful to me. But I think that burnout and the inability to find any balance, and perhaps even more, I think like most narcotics, you start to build a tolerance to it, and you need more to feel the same effect.
Oh, yes.
And so I think that's where burnout, I think, in my unlearned opinion, is a function of I'm dosing myself higher and higher with the comfort of my work and my excellence at my craft. But there's only so much my body and my brain can take, and I have to start subtracting from the healthy habits like sleep and exercise and rest. I'm very blessed that early in my career I figured out that I have to devote a certain amount of time every day to the instrument of me. Like that the instrument of me can't play the music it plays for my clients if I don't get up and tune it in the morning. So I make a point every day of getting up, exercising, moving my body in some way, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's doing cardio, whether it's doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, doing something. I start my day with a tremendous focus on myself and my body. And then I even make a point of giving myself a little sort of treat in that, like I like to either do the sauna or steam room and stretch in there, and stretch in a way that feels very indulgent, like it feels very relaxed, and it sort of feels like a reward for having punished my body a little bit by lifting weights or doing cardio or doing jiu-jitsu. And then I take a shower, and I always have nice products, that smell good and invigorate me. And then we're talking about an hour and a half of my morning. But by starting the day with that, I feel like it is tremendously helpful in keeping me reminded that I have to be a priority. And I'll never let a client take that from me. That's sacred in the morning for me. I don't let anybody take it. If I have to get up at 3:30 a.m. to make sure I have that time because I have to meet a client at 5 a.m. for some reason, or I have a phone call because they're in Europe, I make a point of, okay, whatever I have to do to make sure I protect that little bit of time, I do it.
And that is exactly why you've been in practice for 25 years and not somebody who's burnt out after 5.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I look at some of my colleagues and I'm I worry for them.
Right.
I worry for them because they're great at what they do, but I can see that it's taking a tremendous toll on them physically and mentally. And, I'm very blessed that I'm 53. I don't take any medications of any kind. I don't, I watch my health. I live life. I enjoy good food. I enjoy good wine. But I believe all things in moderation, including moderation. I think sometimes it's great to just enjoy and life's to be lived. But yeah, I think people have a very hard time keeping focus on, I think you have to be a little self-interested. I think we're teaching people that being self-interested means you're being selfish. And I don't think selfish and self-interested are the same thing. I think you have to be a little self-interested because I want to bring my best self to my work, to my clients. They deserve it. I want to bring my best self to my romantic relationship, to my interactions with the people I love. I want to be my best self. I do have to give a little bit of attention to myself. And I think that's a gendered thing a little bit. Women, it's a lot more acceptable to say self-care, oh, I need some self-care. And men saying, well, I need some self-care. It's what are you, you need self-care? You want to go to the spa? But I do think men, and I think there's been some changes in this in recent years. I think it's one of the good things that's come out of the, whatever you want to call it, the manosphere or the red pill movement, is the idea that work on your body, exercise, take care of yourself physically, give some thought to what it is that you're putting into your body diet-wise and how well it works for you. And so I think that's a good thing that's become something men are allowed to. But there's still a bit of stigma about men saying they need rest.
There is, yes.
Yeah.
There is. And it doesn't have to be, bubble bath and chamomile tea. For
Right.
men, it can be
Right.
hunting, it can be golfing, it can
Right.
be driving a fast car, it can be
Right.
high tea activities.
Right.
I encourage my male
Right.
clients to do those things
Right.
all the time. I'm
Yeah.
not the kind of coach that's going to tell you, the only thing you can do is take a bubble bath, right?
Well, and I have a client who's a bow hunter, and he's been a bow hunter for years. And I was talking to him a few weeks ago, and I said something about, you have venison, it must be. And he's like, I haven't really got a deer in a number of years. And I'm like, you go hunting almost every weekend. And he said, I'll tell you a secret. He says, I go into the woods and I go into a tree stand and I sit and read a book, and I just sort of hang out in the woods he's like, sometimes I see different animals and I just sort of watch them. He's like, I don't really take a shot unless I have the shot. He's like, and most of the time, I don't really care if I have a shot. And I said to myself, how many men golf because they like being outside for a bunch of hours and being with friends and having some drinks, I think it's kind of funny that we like to put an activity around, men in particular, we like to put an activity around things. I see it with my own sons. I used to, I had a very sort of emotionless father, who didn't ever talk about feelings. If I'd ever like sat down when I was a teenager and said like, "How you doing, Dad?" He would have looked at me like, "What?" Like, I don't know. Why? So I tried to be the opposite. I used to, when my sons were 12 and 13, I'd be like, "So how are you doing? How's school? Is everything good? How are you? How are you feeling about, They would, "Fine." Why? They're very, and then I figured out sort of by accident that if I went outside and said, "Oh, do you want to play Frisbee? You want to like throw the Frisbee? You want to catch the ball?" We'd start doing that. And then they would say like, "Yeah, I got in a fight with Chris at school today." And I'd be like, "Oh yeah, what happened?" And he'd be like, "Well, I don't know, he's been kind of a jerk lately." And they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's weird. Like, did something change?" And now we're talking. But if I'd sat him down and said, like, I think if I had daughters, if I'd sat down and said, "What are you feeling right now? Are you doing okay?" They would start talking, because all the women in my life, my nieces, women I've dated, like my whole life, if I sit down and go, like, "What's going on? What's on your mind now?" Oh my God, they'll tell you for days.
You're opening the door.
Yeah, or if I say, "I'm working something through, can I share it with you and maybe get your perspective?" Oh, yes, like that's the best date ever. Yeah, what's going on? Like, men, it's like this is not encouraged in us. And yet, I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 15 years. And, this is as tough as an activity as you can get. Like, we're trying to break each other's limbs. And afterwards, we're sitting next to each other, just against the wall, exhausted, having tried to choke each other and break each other's arms. And people just start talking. Like, because now we went through battle here, and now we, like, all right, we've established our dominance. We've established that we're strong. And now it's like I'm having some stuff with my kid. "Oh yeah, what's going on?" Like, like I'm worried about, and by the way, we're facing in the same direction. We're not looking at each other. We're facing the distance. And there's something about, and I've had some of the most intimate discussions with male friends in that setting. And it usually is that, like, okay, first we've proven we're tough, so we don't have to worry. Like, people aren't going to be like, "We're talking about feelings, we must be gay." It's like, no, like we're just men. Like, we're tough. We're doing our thing. But let's talk. Like, it's okay. Like, we don't have to look at each other. It doesn't have to be romantic. We're just looking off in the distance. But we're connecting. And I think that is that's something that men are not encouraged to do. And so high performers, look, we're just people at the end of the day. We're just men. We're just women. We have our biology. We have our structures, and they're not that different. Whether you're if you're a mortician, the body of a homeless person and the body of the president, it's the same meat. It's the same cardiovascular system. It's the same. So it's the same emotional components, I think, too.
Speaking of emotion and touching on a subject that you referred to, which is addiction, which I'm particularly interested in. I wonder if you've ever noticed how one addiction, be it workaholism, right, which is very common amongst high performers, breeds other addictions. So cross addiction.
Yeah.
So for example, I really want to talk about the connection in divorces specifically between work addiction, that breeds perhaps sex addiction, substance addiction.
Yeah.
How common are they in your world?
Yeah, very common. Yeah, it's very common. I think, so first of all, compulsivity leads to compulsivity. And, each profession has its own, like musicians, in my experience, professional musicians, touring professional musicians, like rock stars and things like that. The schedule of that lends itself to certain kinds of substance use disorder and certain kinds of potential sex addiction or love addiction, that kind of a thing. Why? Because you are away from your family or your romantic partner for extended periods of time. You are usually, there are women around that would like to sleep with you because you're a musician on stage and, you're sort of powerful and an artist and, this person feels some connection to you. So it's quite easy because you're on the road. It's quite easy for you to be able to have sexual connections with people outside your marriage that are anonymous and that you're never going to get to know the person again. So that is an easy compulsivity for people to fall into. From a substance use disorder perspective, you are traveling most of the day. You arrive at a location. You're probably tired from the travel, but you have to perform. Right. And you have to perform energetically. So cocaine, Adderall, any kind of amphetamine. And again, I very often see it in non-illicit substances. So it's often Adderall or other stimulants that you can get quite easily, by any physician. You just say, oh, yes, I have ADHD, and they're going to give you stimulants. And you can, instead of taking 20 milligrams, you're taking 100 milligrams, which is the equivalent of, you're microdosing meth, basically. But you're basically giving yourself massive amounts of stimulants, performing on stage, the adrenaline rush that comes from that, and then really you're supposed to go to sleep.
But you don't.
Well, you can't. You have a massive amount of amphetamine still running through your system. You have the adrenaline dump that happens after you get off of stage. So what do? Alcohol and benzodiazepines. And that
weed.
Brings you down. And weed. Yeah, all these. But now we've got all of these stimulants in our body, naturally produced, exogenous and endogenous. And, they're all kind of in and out. And then we start to, and this is a cycle. So now we have this cycle of, okay, one pill makes me up, one pill and one substance drinking, and that drinking and the benzos brings me down. And now you can't fall asleep without it. So now you have so that's what happens in these careers. And it happens with CEOs where they're bouncing from one time zone to another. And again, that's where a lot of stimulants come in, because if you're jet lagged and you're on the wrong calendar, well, if you take some Adderall, you're going to feel like you're connected to whatever calendar you're on, and I think that, and alcohol, of course, is a huge piece of entertaining. When people are executives, they very often have to go out to dinners and things, and there's a sense of, okay, well, we all have to drink, because if you don't drink, you're something of an outlier. I think that's changed a little bit. It's become a little more normalized for people to not drink. There was a time, I would say even 20 years ago, where if you didn't drink alcohol, people assumed you were an alcoholic.
That's right.
Which is strange. Because sometimes people just don't drink because they're athletic, and sometimes they don't drink. I used to competitively run marathons. So for a period of time, I didn't drink alcohol because it just, even a small amount of it would affect my performance the next day. There are people that, now, just, oh yeah, I'm a high performer, I don't drink. And people leave it. They're okay with it. They just don't even notice. But I think there is still some social pressure to feel connected to, to your peers, and if they're drinkers, you drink. We're not, I'd like to think we're more evolved than we are, but we're not as organisms. I think we still want the tribe and the pack to accept us. We want to do the things we need to do. So I think addiction, I think the person who is prone to finding their rewards outside of themselves, which is what many high performers are. If I get a number one record, I'll feel good. If I get a best-selling novel, I'll feel better. I consider myself very blessed that I've worked with so many high-performing people, because it helped me personally not fall into that trap. Yeah. Because I learned very early on that it's a horizon that just forever recedes. It just keeps moving. And so if $100 million doesn't make you feel safe, 200 won't. If a great review of your book in the New York Times doesn't make you feel successful, having a number one bestseller is not going to make you feel successful. And I'm human. I feel those same things. When my book came out, I remember thinking, oh my God, if I would walk into a bookstore and see my book on the shelf, I will feel successful. And for a second I did.
Yes.
But then it was but wouldn't it be great to have it get reviewed in the Times, and have them love it? Then I'd feel successful. And then the Times reviewed it and they loved it. And for a minute, I felt really good. But then I was yeah, but what if it makes the bestseller list? You know, and at some point my brain went, yeah, no, like just stop. Like just stop. Like you're either in the have or on the get, you know? And like, I think clients who are prone to, and are high performers who are prone to, we just need this and then we'll have it. Then we're good. Then we have the recipe. Oh, I just need this also. And then if I have that, then I'm going to, if they really stop and say like, okay, this is a horizon that keeps receding, I think that they're less prone to those things. But for so long as you're in that mindset, I think you're opening yourself up to other kinds of addictions, to other kinds of compulsivities. And again, these are all, I think, very basic biological urges. I mean, you know, I have a lot of clients who would say they have sex addiction. I think sex addiction is something people refer to having when they get caught in affairs. I don't know that it actually is like I'm not qualified to say, but it just seems to be the thing that everybody, well, I have sex addiction. That's why I slept with this person. It's like, no, you slept with this person because they're attractive and it's fun to sleep with attractive people. Like that's like, I'm not suggesting you should have engaged in that behavior, but it's not complicated. Like it's not that complicated. Yes, there's more underneath. Why didn't you not let yourself get into a place in your relationship where you felt so disconnected from your partner that you weren't getting what you needed from them sexually to the point where now you were willing to sacrifice the short-term pleasure against the potential of joy of a long-term relationship where you've been successfully monogamous. I kind of get why people didn't do all that math in their head. Like they went, look, I like chocolate cake. You know, if you put a piece of chocolate cake in front of me right now, I would go, oh, yeah, no, if I eat that now, my blood sugar is going to spike. I'm going to be a mess for the rest of the day. Like, that's okay. But if it was the end of a really long day, you know, and I'm tired and I feel like I deserve something, you know, and you put a piece of chocolate cake, I'll be like, oh, I'll have like one bite. I'll have one bite and then it tastes pretty good. Well, now I'm eating junk. I might as well just go the whole way. And then I'm going to eat the piece of cake. And the next morning I'll go, oh man, like that isn't what I wanted to do. I was kind of, you know, I don't feel as good now. But in that moment, I'm not thinking about how I'm going to feel the next day. It has nothing to do with how I'm going to feel the next day. I just want something right now.
Well, speaking about wanting something, I'm curious. Sex, money, power, which one of those three is the most common ground for divorce?
You know, there's a quote. It's been attributed to Oscar Wilde, so I don't know who said it. But the quote is that everything in the world is about sex, except for sex, which is about power. So I would say all of those things are about sex. Money is about sex as far as I'm concerned. Yes. And sex is about sex. But sex is also about power. So I can't separate them as easily. I think money is the least relevant. I think money is value, and that value is always relative. You know, we learned when COVID happened that suddenly, like, how much money you had, there were certain things you still couldn't, like restaurants were still closed. It didn't matter how much money you had. Like, you still couldn't get on an airplane. It didn't matter how much money you had. Like, maybe if you had private jet money, you could fly your private jet someplace. Why? To go where? To go someplace that was in lockdown? Right. Like, so suddenly the limits of wealth became very clear, which is why, like, everybody got into, like, making sourdough bread and, like, you know, doing these very rustic
and
things.
Cold plunges.
Yeah, because it was like, okay, like, this is something I can still do, you know, and test myself with and push myself in. And so, and I even think sex is, I mean, aside from it being a very enjoyable pursuit, like, sex is about connection. Mm. You know, it's about connection, and it's about, there's pleasure in there, of course, but, like, there's some unique thing about the combination of pleasure and power that sex represents. And so I would say that is our most important drive, but it manifests in all of these other weird things. Like, I think money becomes a way to feel like we're of value, you know, and I think it's always a function too of what you, I mean, this is going to sound very therapist-y of me, but like it's what you didn't have when you were like a kid.
Of course.
You know, like I grew up without money. So I remember thinking like money came to represent all the things I didn't have. And so I thought if I had money, I'd have all those things. I'd have security, stability, comfort. I'd feel successful. And then I got money. And it's great. Don't get me wrong. Like I've been poor and I've been rich. So much better to be rich. So much better. But it doesn't solve those core problems. Like it offers an imaginary solution to real problems and a real solution to imaginary problems. But it's not a real solution. So I think if your wound when you were a kid was my mom didn't love me or show me affection, or love and affection was something I had to earn by doing things right. And if I did it right, I would get love. And if I did it wrong, I wasn't worthy of love. I was worthy of derision and scorn. Then yeah, you're going to have a really hard time as an adult in your intimate relationship. Because if your girlfriend or soon-to-be wife is upset when you want to have a rational conversation about a prenup, you're feeling that as like the world is ending, you know?
Right.
But really all it is a woman isn't particularly pleased with you in this moment. But you've the 7-year-old you that's still in there is going, mom's mad, like you must be doing it wrong. You must be bad, you know? And I think that's what it's about. Like, that's what it's about. And I know like I think we all think we're impervious to that or that we've evolved past it or something. But I actually don't think it's something you ever evolve out of. I think it's just something you can learn to, oh, that's what's happening in me right now. And that's a superpower.
I'm curious. You said on average at the moment you have between 20...
Yeah, 15 and 20 clients.
15 and 20 clients. Out of 15 to 20 clients, how many divorces or divorce proceedings have an element of sex, infidelity, sexless?
I would say all of them would fit into one of those categories.
Okay.
There's either some sexual disconnection that leads to malcontent that leads to divorce, or there is some sexual disconnection that leads to infidelity that leads to divorce, or there is some infidelity that is in no way connected, like where they still have an active sexual relationship with their spouse, but they also end up having an affair, and that leads to divorce. So I think sex is always part of the equation. It's just how much is about sex and how much is not about sex. Sex is also, I think I've learned in my line of work, it's symbolic of different things for people, you know, and I think, you know, it's different with men and women, obviously. I'm not, you know, giving away anything, you know, groundbreaking by saying that men and women, again, not all men, not all women, but many men and many women process sex differently. Like I know a lot of men that see sex like they see eating. Like it's just a biological urge that like I need to get. Like I need to like I genuinely believe if their spouse just slept with them or gave them a blowjob in the morning before they left, like their relationship would be much easier. It would just be easier. They would just have an easier day because it's just something that they needed to sort of, okay, I got, like me in the exercise in the morning. Okay, I exercise, great. Got that out of the way, and now I can go do the other things.
Yeah.
And a lot of men I know, and I have to tell you, I am this way. Immediately after sex, I want to go do stuff. Like I don't like want to nap and snuggle. Like I want to like go out and do things. Like
Conquer
I feel like
the world.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in my power, you know, like I feel great. And I've actually had to train myself, like, because very few women I interact with are like that. And so I've had to train myself in relationship to like, no. Like she wants you to like kind of be here for a minute and sort of like, okay, like be present and like, and it's not a chore to do that. It's okay.
But it's a learned behavior.
But it's a learned behavior. I had to learn it because for me, it's like, whoa, wasn't that great? That was so great. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? Let's go downstairs and we'll do that. Because I want to do things. I feel like I'm in my power,
Yes.
And I think that, many of my partners in life, it's the opposite. Like they're like, oh no, let's just be in the warmth of each other, and just sort of soft and quiet. And it's the opposite emotional experience to what I'm having, like in terms of an energetic experience, but that's okay. I mean, I think that's in an ideal permutation, you're going to understand each other, and she'll understand that's the way that I am, and I'll understand that that's the way that she is, and we can make some accommodation for each other. And I think that's if we could talk about those things more comfortably as a society, I think we'd be better off.
One of the things that I love most about your work and your insights is how factual they are. You've just simply seen an enormous amount of cases, period, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I've had a really unavoidably honest seat to it. Like I have to see things that people would not admit in public.
Very unique seat.
Right, yeah.
So let me ask you this from just a data or pattern standpoint. What are couple dynamics or archetypes where those are most bound to end in divorce?
Yeah.
And what are the dynamics or archetypes where there is more chances of likelihood of a continued marriage?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, for instance, and I know we're going down the cliche route, but cliches are cliche for a reason.
Yeah, I always say stereotypes are a real time saver.
They are.
Yeah.
So are we more likely to succeed in a marriage if we have a high-powered professional with a more stay-at-home person? Are we more likely to succeed if we have two high flyers, equally driven? Tell us more. So let's
so I this is something I can very, very clearly comment on as someone in the trenches watching who's getting divorced. And the permutation of hard-charging, active worker and supportive other, keeping the home front burning, taking care of kids, being a supportive presence, that is the more successful pairing in terms of least likely to end in divorce, more likely to continue in the kind of marriage worth continuing in. Right. So I don't consider divorce the ultimate failure. I think staying in an incredibly unhappy marriage is a different kind of failure.
I agree.
So I don't think when someone says we stayed married for 50 years, we were miserable for 40 of them, I think you lived your life terribly then. I don't think, unless you're very religious and believe you're going to burn an eternal hellfire if you divorce, I can't imagine why that would be a compromise you would make, because those were 40 years where you could have found connection in some other aspect of life. So that's a permutation, because I think when you put two hard-charging people or two unambitious people in a relationship, the lack of polarity leads to just an endless series of either competitions that are very unhealthy in a relationship. I've seen this with actors marrying actors, or actors marrying musicians, high-profile celebrities marrying high-profile celebrities, athletes marrying, actors. Because this is what happens. People in the rarefied air meet other people in the rarefied air. C-suite executives marrying C-suite executives. That doesn't... It works if you're two people who are both in high-performing fields that are in no way competitive with each other. So, I've seen very successful athlete marrying actress. David Beckham, Victoria Beckham. That's... very successful. Why? Because they're both elite at what they do, but what they do is completely different. They're in no way competing with each other, you know? Right. But they can understand certain aspects of each other's lives in very real ways. And that is useful. But even that one of you steps out of the limelight a little bit to raise the kids and focus on other things. So even then, there's still some sense of, like who's the plus one and who's the star, and that's still tricky. Like it's still tricky to do. I've seen it fail a lot of times too. But like actor married to actor, I've done a bunch of those divorces because one is I just got this new series and this one, my series got canceled. And then there's this constant feeling of like, oh, well, I don't want to just be known as blah, blah, blah's spouse. Like I was a star also. I want to be, so that's a very tricky thing. I think, I represent a lot of musicians and actors, and the happiest ones are married to what we call civilians. Like they're married to civilians. Like they're married to someone you would pass on the street. You never know who they were. Like they're a teacher or a social worker.
Hence why Notting Hill is such a success,
yeah,
right? It's a hit. It's a cautionary tale.
Because,
it's a manual on what to do.
Right. Like, if you marry a civilian, if they can handle the chaos that is your life.
Right.
Which not everyone can.
Yes.
Not everyone can. Like I see that. I even see that a little bit in my own life. Like, because I'm recognized quite often. And I'll be out with my son even to dinner. I took my son out for his birthday recently and we were having dinner. And just two people came up to the table and they were like, I'm so sorry. I just want to tell you I'm a fan. And I said, oh, that's lovely. And it's always a lovely thing. It's a lovely, these are not people coming up to me to say, I don't like you. Like they're always coming up to say, I like your work. Can I take a picture with you? And it's a lovely, lovely feeling. But, and thankfully my son is like, oh, he's kind of proud of that. It's my dad. Like someone's that interested in my father. But there does come a point where when it's been interrupted enough times, like it starts to be like that person you're with starts to go like, okay, like I want your attention. I'd like your undivided attention. And the ways that you can give them your undivided attention become smaller and smaller. Because if you want my undivided attention, we have to go somewhere where no one's going to see me. And I am a D-list celebrity at best. Like some of my clients, they cannot go in the normal entrance of any place or they will be mobbed by people and photographers. And they either have to stop for an hour and sign everything for everyone and take pictures, or they have to go, I'm sorry. And then people go, look at him, he thinks he's so much better than anybody, can't even stop for his fans for 5 minutes. So it's a terrible choice. So I think there are pairings that make sense. And a pairing that makes sense is a high-profile person and a supportive other who's not in any way threatened by that and learns to sort of roll along with it. But having two very high-profile people is usually very difficult to navigate.
And you've spoken a lot about the world of show business and movies and athletes. Is that advice or observation rather also relevant in the world of finance, hedge funds, law? So for example, if we have, John, global managing partner of one of the largest law firms in the world, and we have Caroline, who is the MD at the largest investment bank in the world.
They're going to have challenges because they're two very stressful professions. And when both of you are stressed, it's hard to have one of you be shelter in the storm.
And it's the whose job is more important question, especially when it comes to kids.
Challenging.
Right?
Well, and what's extra challenging about that is if you have one who's in medicine, which is high stress, good finance, like a surgeon. I do a lot of surgeon divorces. Surgeons do well. They make in the millions very often, depending on the kind of surgery. But often they'll be married to like a hedge fund person.
Yes.
So that person,
I have this pairing too.
So that person will make, in a month, a good month, what this person makes in 5 years. But this person is moving numbers on a page, and this person is doing brain surgery, like and actually helping remove a tumor from someone's brain. So which of those is more important? Well, this one's more lucrative, but this one's actually going to save someone's life.
Right.
So now not comparing apples to apples. Like what metric do we decide what's important by? And so, because again, money-wise, like most of my clients are in finance. Like I'm in New York, so most of my clients are in finance. Many are hedge fund people. Many are partners in law firms that represent hedge fund people or that represent multinational corporations. The pressures and stress of their jobs, the fact that it's not dependent on a particular time zone, that markets are always open somewhere, like that, it makes for chaos. And if you have two people whose jobs are chaos, whether it's medicine and finance, which is, I don't know what the market's doing today. I know on Friday it was absolute chaos. Today, maybe it won't be. I don't know. If I was in finance, I wouldn't be able to be having this conversation with you comfortably in the middle of a morning because I would have to be checking my phone and seeing what's going on. So I have some clients that, from the market bell to the market bell, they're not interested. They can't talk to me. And when I say to them, well, court's at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, they go, well, I can't.
You can't.
I have to be at the desk at that time. Like
Yes.
that's not, or if I say, okay, well, let's talk at 7. No, I'm talking to Asia at that time. Like, okay, well, we have to have some connection here. Like you're getting divorced. I understand you're busy, but you're going to have to squeeze getting divorced into your schedule, So
I'm only learning.
Yeah.
I'm only laughing because that feels oh so familiar.
Yeah.
I really genuinely struggle to make time for the conversation with my divorce attorneys when I was doing my divorce proceedings.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because one of the factors that led to my divorce in the first place was how I worked around the clock, was absent from the marital home.
Yeah.
And actually married my job rather than my ex-husband.
Yeah. I do really well, I have to tell you, with clients who are like that. I'm probably feeding very unhealthy habits in them, but I love working with people in finance, particularly quant people, because they're so precise. So I'll say, I need a 15-minute conversation with you at some point in the next 48 hours. And they're like, how's 3:35 p.m. on Tuesday? Great. Can you send me an email with what items will be? Yes, I can. And I'll send them, here's the items we're going to cover. And they just, boom, boom, boom. That's it. And thank you, done. And it's actually even economically efficient for them because it uses, I'm paid by the hour. So if you spend, 6 minutes just like blathering to me about, like you're wasting your money. So I do like working with people that have it. But again, I'm sure I'm feeding a very unhealthy habit in them.
Where were you when I needed you?
I was here. Yeah. It was a different jurisdiction, though. You probably weren't residing in New York, so it may not have had New York ties.
That was one of the jurisdictions that was not involved in my multiple
that's where
jurisdictions. That's where you were.
I was. I couldn't have helped you. I could have referred you to good counsel, but I couldn't have helped
If
you.
you'd been in Brazil doing jiu-jitsu, we could have been...
I spent a lot of time in Brazil in the last bunch of years, so yeah, I could have. It may have been, but I was usually in Rio, and I think you were Sao Paulo person.
Oh, I was Sao Paulo, you see.
So you had better choices. Yeah.
Okay, so speaking from the perspective of someone who navigated a very nasty divorce and yet remarried wholeheartedly and actually never lost faith in marriage. Perhaps naivety, perhaps French romance, but I genuinely remember thinking, as hard as it was when I was in the trenches of the divorce and it got as nasty as divorces can get, there was a part of me towards the exit, not towards the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
There is always that cast that because I believed in love so profoundly, I knew that the quicker I would get to the end point of that divorce, the sooner I could get into the start of my next love story.
Yeah.
Right? And I didn't know what that would look like or feel like.
Yeah.
But I have to say that I did throw a lot of money at that problem because my mindset was get it paid quick.
Yeah.
Whatever he doesn't agree on, let's get it fixed
done.
with money so that I can move
sometimes you
on.
can do. Yeah.
To me, that was the price of freedom.
That's
I
okay.
just wanted to...
I have a lot of clients who have that approach.
Right. And I don't regret it because it fast-tracked the process.
Yeah.
I wonder, what is your personal view on the nature of marriage? Do you still believe in it?
So I don't believe in marriage necessarily, I still find the gesture of marriage very romantic for most people. Like I think love is the most wonderful thing. I think love's the most important thing. I believe very, very strongly in the power of love, in the value of love. I think almost everything we do is a desire to find love, to be loved, to feel worthy of love, to feel the connection of love to another person, to, if we have children, like to feel our love create a new person, and then to watch that person grow and to share this incredible, deep love for this new organism that's part you and part me. Like, that's it. Like, that's it. Like, what could be more than this? That's the greatest thing in the world. It's the only thing in the world. Marriage is a structure we built around it, with the idea that we could keep it safe if we did that. And I think that's charming. You know, someone once said to me that God is the name that we give to a blanket that we put over a mystery to give it shape. Because we can't describe what it is, so we have to like find words for it. So God is the name we give to the blanket we put over a mystery just to give it shape. I think marriage is a technology we invented to put over this beautiful, wonderful connection that we feel so often and so deeply, and we're so capable of. And we're capable of feeling it more than once in our lifetime, and we're capable of feeling it probably with multiple people, you know, over the course of a lifetime, or multiple possible pasts and possible futures, right? If there was a multiverse, like there's probably 15 people you could have a wonderful relationship with, you know, out of 8 billion choices. And so we built this thing around it because it's so important. We want to keep it safe. But I think the second order effect of it sometimes is that it gives us a false sense of security. It gives us a sense that, okay, now I have that and it's safe, so I don't have to think about it anymore. I don't have to treat it with care. I don't have to remember that, like, it's mine now. It's mine now. So it's like, it's fine. Like, it's mine. I don't have to worry about that. I can focus on these other things now. And I don't think love is ever permanently gifted to us. It's loaned at best. And so I don't believe in marriage as a genuine method of preserving what is so desirable about love. I think that to the extent that marriage and love correlate, that's lovely, but I don't think it's causal. Like, I don't think people that really love each other need to get married. I think they'd still be in love. And I don't think that just because you marry somebody that it means you love them. I've seen people get married for convenience or for financial reasons or good health insurance or to shut their parents up. There's a million reasons to get married. And by the way, some of those might be good reasons to get married.
Right.
But like, if you said to me now, okay, like if you hadn't remarried and we were friends and you said to me, I'm getting married again. And I said, oh, really, why? That would be rude. And I don't know why that would be rude.
But
like,
why would it be rude, though?
I don't know. I don't consider it rude, but I think most of polite society would consider it rude because why? Because I love this person. Right. What does that have to do with marriage?
Right.
And so you're about to sign on for something that fails 56% of the time, roughly. And that those are just the ones that end in divorce. Like another 10, 20% probably are just miserable and they don't want to give away half their things or not see their children. Okay, now you have something that fails 70% of the time. Why? Why in God's name would you sign on for that thing? Again, I don't ask the question. I understand. I understand that, you know, people often don't even know why they would get married because you're supposed to do it. That's why. That's what you're supposed to do. Like, we've been together for a while. We're supposed to get married. Like,
right.
Okay.
It's an expectation.
Okay.
It's the pinnacle of what society
But
has.
I say this often, you know, look, tradition can be two things. Tradition can either be the wisdom of the people that came before us and what we learned from them and what's worth preserving, or it can be peer pressure exerted by dead people. And I think most of the time, tradition is peer pressure from dead people. People who lived in a time that was nothing like ours. People where the majority, when marriage started as a technology, people died in their 30s. Most women died in childbirth. Like, it was not something you signed on for when you were 25 and then were expected to stay in until you were 90. You were having babies at 15 and 16, which, by the way, is the time when your body is most primed to have babies. Like, so we were working within our biology at that time. Now, again, I'm not suggesting we haven't made progress. I, for one, am grateful for antibiotics. I'm grateful that we understand germ theory. I'm glad that we don't die at 30 anymore and that women don't die in childbirth all the time anymore. But we have to accept the fact that we are primitive creatures in medieval institutions with godlike technologies in our hands and the ability to do things that used to take weeks, if not months. Making an apple pie took an entire day. Like, you had to pick apples or go to some market to get apples, and then you had to, at the stove, you had to heat it with wood, and now we could have an apple pie here in 15 minutes probably. Anywhere in Manhattan, you could have a warm apple pie delivered in 15 minutes. So what do you do with doing laundry? It used to require like a lot. It requires nothing now. Most of the things we need to do now to meet our basic needs take almost nothing from us. Mm-hmm. So was marriage, those conditions were the conditions in which the technology of marriage was created. Are they still the same conditions? Does the same technology make sense?
What does that mean about how it influences your personal life? Let's say you were to sit down and have a scotch with your best friend in the whole wide world after a bow hunting trip.
All right, after his bow hunting.
And he told you, I met the one. I've got an engagement ring in my pocket and I want you to be the first person to see it. Yeah. Would you actively advise him not to marry that woman?
No, I would say if he's going to get a prenup, get married as many times as you want.
Only if you drafted the prenup.
Yeah. Have a prenup. Have a prenup. If you have a prenup, get married. Like, my son got married 3 weeks ago.
And you didn't advise him against it?
He's a lawyer. She's a lawyer. I was like, you guys are having a prenup, right? They were like, oh, hell yeah. I was like, oh, okay, good.
And so you feel fine about it?
Yeah, totally. Who wouldn't? It was so much fun, that wedding. Like, I went to a wedding this weekend. My longtime assistant, her daughter got married. And so she invited everybody from the office and we all went to that. It was amazing. It was a blast. Food and wine and everyone dancing and all there celebrating the most lovely thing to celebrate. Two people who found each other and love each other and got up and said, hey, I found my person. Like, look, everybody look, I found my person. Like, what could be more worthy of celebration than that? If the first time you have everyone you love in a room celebrating you is your funeral, you're an idiot. Like, there's something so beautiful about a group of people getting together and celebrating love, connection between two people, the desire, the decision to move in together and to walk the path together. Like, that's beautiful. It's wonderful. But why wouldn't you have a prenup? Why wouldn't you have a contract or rules that govern, hey, if this doesn't work out, which statistically it is likely it will not work out, why wouldn't you have a piece of paper that governs what your rights and obligations are? Wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't you want your partner to have that? Wouldn't you want them to feel safe? Like, I don't think I can feel loved if I don't feel safe. I can only feel loved if I feel safe.
Right.
Emotionally safe, physically safe. So a prenup's about both people feeling safe. And so I would say to my friend, like, the most important thing of this sentence he's saying to me in this hypothetical conversation is, I found my person. That's the best part. The rest is the details. Where you're going to live, what you're going to do, whether we'll have joint or individual bank accounts. Like, that's all. I found my person. Tell me about her. Tell me about her. What do you love about her? What makes you feel loved by her? What does she do that no one else does? Like, what does she make you feel that no one else has? Like, what do you feel about her? What does you make her feel? Like, this is the most interesting conversation we could probably have. You know, like if I sat here and said to you, tell me about your husband. What's the best thing he does? What's the thing he does that makes you feel more loved than anyone's ever made you feel? Because I tell you something, I could learn from that. I've never met your husband. I could learn from your husband if you shared that with me. I could probably learn it better from you than I could your husband. Because if I said to your husband, how do you make her feel the most loved? His answer might not be yours. And I would love to hear both of your answers. And by the way, that's a conversation worth having. Like if you said to him, like, when do you feel most loved by me? I bet you might not guess the answer. I think hearing the answer might be really, really useful, because if you love this person, I want to give you as much of that as I can, you know? And so to me, like if I was talking to a friend and they're talking about that, what you're going to do, how you will get the government involved in that relationship is the least interesting part of this conversation. What's interesting to me is how you feel and what plan do you have to continue that? How will you keep that alive? How will you keep that fire burning? Because you feel that way now, but like, what is it? Because if what it is that, oh my God, I've never had better sex. Okay. But when you've had it 1,000 times, do you think it'll still feel the same? Because like there's a song I heard recently that I really, really like. So I just keep replaying it. Every time I'm walking anywhere, I keep listening to it. I'm going to get sick of that song eventually. It's a great song. But if I listen to it 4,000 times in the next 2 months, I'm going to get sick of it.
And you're going to have another
And there's going to be another great song, because there's a lot of good musicians out there, you know? So if the only thing connecting me to this person is that we could have great raucous sex, I don't know. Again, not going to caution you not to get married, but I'm going to say, wow, man, so you better protect that. Like you better feed that part of this relationship if that's the thing that's the primary bond between the two of you.
And let's say that you continue having this conversation and he now assures you he's going to get you to draft the prenup.
All right, good.
What are 3 things he could be telling you that would be immediate red flags, knowing all that you know?
Yeah, anytime someone tells me that their plan for happiness is contingent on another person changing, I am certain that is a major red flag. Well, I think once we have kids, he'll probably drink less. Or, well, you know, once we finish this deal, I'm going to have a little more free time and she won't be so upset at me, because once the merger goes through, I'll have more free time and we'll, you know. Like right now, we're very stressed with the wedding and we're very detached, but when that's over, we'll reconnect again. Anytime it's contingent, I always go red flag. That would be 1. 2 would be, you know, it's actually the converse of that. So any plan that is contingent on someone changing is a red flag.
Yes.
And any plan that is contingent on someone never changing is also a red flag.
Yes.
This is exactly the same, and it's going to stay the same forever. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's definitely the only constant is change.
Right.
Like, so if your relationship, it's going to change and then it'll be good, red flag. And it's never going to change. That's why it'll always be good, another red flag.
She's always going to have this job.
Always going to have, right, or I'm always going to feel this way about my work, or she's always going to be beautiful, or I'm always going to be successful, or we're always this is a recipe for disaster. 3rd thing is, I don't think you ever marry one person. I think you marry into the ecosystem of that person. So you're marrying their family. You're marrying their children if they have children. You're marrying your future children born or adopted of this relationship and who they will be as a parent or co-parent. You're marrying the people in their orbit. You know, like if someone's a partner in a law firm, you're marrying their partners. You know,
oh, yeah.
If they're a physician in a surgical practice, you're marrying the surgeons who they work with and their spouses. and what's going on in their relationships. So you don't just marry one person, you're marrying into an ecosystem. And so that's important to talk about because, we fall in love very fast and we fall in love in the intimacy of this one-on-one connection that we have, right? And we celebrate it, in sex, which is usually done, with just the two of you in the room, unless you have a different kink. And so a lot of the deepest connections we make in the private aspects of our romantic relationship. But then we got to take the show on the road. We got to live in the world. We got to go deal with each other's parents and grandparents and cousins and brother and sister and coworkers. And I have to go to this bar association event and I obviously have to have you with me, and okay, you're signing on for that.
You are.
And so understanding a little bit of that because, in addition to not only marrying one person, you're not only marrying one aspect of that person. This person is your lover, but they're your roommate. They're your co-parent, potentially. They're your travel partner. They're your financial partner in some ways. There's a lot of, if this was a job description and I wasn't ever allowed to fire them without giving half my stuff away and the position was permanent, I would interview carefully. I wouldn't just say oh yeah, she seems fine. We went to college together. She's pretty. Yeah, let's do that. I would kind of go hey, what are your morals and values? Where, what is it? And again, I might not even just trust what they say because I will tell you as a divorce lawyer, I've learned, and I'm sure you have in all of your work, that who people say they are and who they actually are, it's very often bears no rational relation to each other, And so I'm interested in hearing who you say you are because it sometimes reflects who you think you are. That may bear no resemblance to who you actually are or who you're perceived as. So I think all of those as a divorce lawyer, as a courtroom lawyer, I'm always thinking about everyone in the room. Everyone, who do they want to be perceived to be? Who are they actually? What can I do with the optics of them? But, I think in relationship, it's important. I think personally, that's been the hardest thing to navigate of being very good at my job is that I'm constantly thinking 5 moves ahead and I'm constantly looking at who is this person really? I know who they want to be. I knew who they're presenting as, but what's really going on here? And that, there's a line in a Joseph Brodsky poem that I quote very often. It's in the opening of my book too. He says, "I wish I knew no astronomy when stars appear." And I feel that way sometimes. I think sometimes it would be lovely to just know nothing about love and just to feel it.
Do you think that somewhere in the future there could be a time where you may want to remarry again?
Marriage doesn't mean anything to me, so it would have to mean a lot to my partner. If there were reasons why it meant something to my partner, yes. If my partner was religious, if my partner's family felt strongly about it culturally, those are good reasons, I think, to get married. With a prenup.
Your prenup.
100%. And I think, again, I also think a wedding is super fun. I think it's fun to celebrate love. And I think that there's something beautiful about the public declaration of love that's very sweet.
You could do a non-legal wedding. Nobody ever asked you to see the paperwork.
Ever. I say it all the time. People always say well, we want to have a wedding. I'm go have a wedding. I'm did you see your parents' marriage license?
Exactly.
I've never been to a wedding and at the end of it said I'd like to see the paperwork before I give you the gift. I'd like to see the license. Who the hell ever know?
I'll tell you, I remarried in Tahiti. And do you know how we got our marriage certificate? On the palm tree leaves.
That's awesome, though.
Oh, I think so.
I think that
love that.
That's a great reason to get married in Tahiti.
Of course.
And I would frame it in the palm tree leaf. That's awesome.
Done.
You know what? That's a marriage license I'd like to see. That's worth seeing. Yeah.
That's how I wanted to remarry.
Love that.
It was
Love that.
beautiful.
Yeah, I love
Everything that I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love the fact that I think there's something very beautiful. Like 86% of people who divorce are remarried within 5 years of their divorce. And I think that statistic is not a sign of our insanity. I think it's a sign of the fact that how badly we want to love someone and be loved by someone, and how irrational we are when it comes to thinking we can protect it. Like that we can create boxes, like legal boxes to put it in, or titles, like we'll give it a name, and then it'll be safe, you know? And I get that. Like I get the part of us that wants to feel safe.
Well, call me disillusioned, but I genuinely believed that my divorce was an asset. And the reason I say that, I don't mean financial, because I'm the one who lost a lot of money.
Yeah,
so I had a very unusual role in the divorce where I paid for the divorce attorney, and I'm the one who lost the property in the divorce. So, the sort of...
it's not as unusual as you'd think anymore. Women have been on the rise, and men have been a little bit on the decline. So I have a lot of very high net worth female clients.
I have an incredible amount of sympathy and compassion because of that perspective with my male client who are going through divorce proceedings, because I've literally been in their shoes, in the financial shoes. Yeah. So when I say my divorce was an asset, I genuinely don't mean financial. Yeah. But when I did meet my now husband, I didn't present my divorce as a wound of failure. I actually remember as hurt and even as big of a word as it is, and I know it's thrown a bit too much, but it's traumatizing.
It's trauma. Sure, of course it's trauma.
It was. The reason I say it was an asset is because it was packed with lesson and learnings, and it was a roadmap on what to do and how I fucked it up. And
what not to do.
What not to do. And I really feel that it gave me a PhD in relationships. And the failures and the success.
I feel like I learned a tremendous amount from my own divorce. I learned a lot from the divorces of my clients about relationship. I think we do ourselves a great disservice by viewing marriage as success, divorce as failure. I think there should come a time where we view relationships like chapters in a long book.
Yes.
And I think that, like any novel worth reading, there are chapters that are tragic, there are chapters that are terrifying, there are chapters where you should have been afraid and didn't realize you should have been afraid, and then there's the horror and terror and trauma of the horrible thing. And then there's the hero's journey of the recovery and the rebuilding and the success and the triumph. And I just feel like we're all writing this book. We all have this opportunity to write this book of our life. And I think some of the greatest chapters of my life have been different relationships I've had. And I've learned something from every one of them, even the pain of them. And even that pain, like, in retrospect, when I look back on it, like, it's something so beautiful about it. Like, it was so real. Like, it was so real that, like, that sadness, that feeling so lost, like, it was such a deep, real emotion, and I'm so grateful to have felt so many things in this life. Like, one of the greatest sort of blessings of consciousness is having the ability to just feel all these things, like, and the ability to feel loss means you had something.
That's right.
Like, and I'm so grateful to have had something, so I feel very unsurprised that your divorce was an asset, because I think if we can see these painful, even traumatic chapters as part of the novel that is our life, I think we will be better for it. We'll be stronger for it. We'll love better for it. We'll appreciate the value of our love more. I mean, I'm sure that and again, I don't know your ex-husband, but he probably didn't love you the way you needed to be loved. And maybe that taught you the way you needed to be loved, right? Like, I have a friend who's a sommelier, and I was once having a conversation with him about how people learn to develop a wine palate. And he said the biggest mistake that people make is they try to learn what wine goes well with what food, which is the goal of developing a wine palate. The goal is to be able to pair the right wine with the right food. But he said the best way to learn that is to pair wrong. Because when it's good, it's so subtle that you only kind of notice how perfect it is. But when it's wrong, it's obvious.
It's so jarring.
So he said, so if you want to learn how to pair wine, drink a bold Bordeaux with big tannins with sushi. You won't even taste the sushi.
Sounds like my first marriage.
Right. Or have a delicate Pinot with a steak, like a big, juicy, fat, and the steak will overpower that wine. He's like, and once you've learned what doesn't work, then you can start to say, oh no, this is what works. And I think it's the same thing. I think that you have to learn. My mother used to say that, it's hard to identify intelligence, but you can spot stupid a mile away. And I think it's the same thing. Like, you've learned in your divorce. I learned in my divorce and my clients' divorces the way people don't feel loved, the way that people feel neglected or empty or lonely, even with someone else, which is a special kind of loneliness. And maybe what a good marriage is one that doesn't have that.
Being from Taillon-Médoc and having a father who is a wine collector, this metaphor of wine pairing for marriage.
I know my audience. I'm talking to a French woman.
Is really hitting hard. So one that I shall remember, and one that I will celebrate with my husband, telling him that he's a good pairing.
He's a perfect pairing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
May
It's a
I
pleasure.
ask you one last question?
Of course.
What would be the best way for our listener to connect to your world?
Get a prenup. No.
I was hoping you would say that.
Yeah. You can, if you go to sextonshow.com, that's the show that I do on YouTube, and it has a lot of connections to other things that I do. Or you can go to nycdivorces.com, and that'll tell you a lot about my media work and my work as an attorney. And on Instagram, I'm NYC Divorce Lawyer. But usually you'll just find me walking around Manhattan. So if you do, say hello.
Or in podcast studio around the world.
Or in a podcast studio around the world.
Merci. Et à bientôt in Bordeaux.
Lovely. Lovely to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
Merci.
If you want to be featured on industry's leading podcasts, you need to grow your LinkedIn presence and improve your personal brand, but have zero time to do it yourself. Capture B is your answer. I've been using it myself, and it's been just a game changer. So today, I want to share it with you. If you're ready to grow your business and personal brand without burning out in the process, go to captureb.io. Thank you for spending your time with me today and listening to this episode. Remember to subscribe so that you can receive weekly updates. And if today's message resonated with you, please remember to share it with a friend, a colleague, or a loved one who could really benefit from this episode.